Namaste, everyone. This is Bhuvan from Coache Me Nepal. I'm here again with another awesome Learn and Grow session. As you know, we do this every Thursday and Friday. And why do we do this? Because we're a platform focused on learning, growing, and transforming. Today, we're going to be talking about NLP and self esteem. I'll discuss some techniques in NLP that can support your self esteem better. We'll be doing a few more sessions on NLP and self esteem as well, because one session just doesn't feel like it's good enough. Right. Now, self esteem is a big deal, and it obviously has a big impact on the quality of life we live. It is also important for me to mention right away that self esteem is more than just self confidence. If you look at the word self esteem itself, especially if you look at the word esteem itself, it comes from the Latin word estimare, and it means to put a value on. So if you actively analyze the word self esteem, it appears to clearly mean the value we put on ourselves. So, what are the foundations of high self esteem people, you may ask? Well, individuals who carry high self esteem look at themselves in positive light. That's the first thing. They have a really good, strong sense of who they are. They're capable of understanding their emotions, feelings, and managing them effectively. They also seem to have clarity on what their life purpose is, or purpose behind all of their major activities. I'm sure it's obvious to most of us that these people with high self-esteem, they were not born differently. They were not born with, better self-esteem or with some remarkable God-given gift. I'm going to discuss some of the basic presuppositions of NLP and show you NLP's perspective on how it could deal with self-esteem. What this write-up is going to try and stress on is the NLP presupposition: if anyone can do it, you can do it. Once you get a grasp of what people with healthy self-esteem do, you can examine their actions, you can break them down to smaller chunks, and start picturing how you can replicate these and start taking similar actions. You can start copying their actions, right? Since I believe that self-esteem is a major issue for most of us today, I'm planning to cover this topic in 4 installments so that I can provide better clarity to you. I'm certain the areas we're planning to explore in these 4 installments will assist most of us to enhance our self-esteem. The first thing we're going to be talking about today is strengthening your sense of self. Now, a lot of people who lack self-esteem are seeking help. Some of them feel that a coach could be an answer for them, while others feel a few counseling sessions may be the answer to help them with their self-esteem. Yet there are so many others who suffer in silence, and struggle to hide from the world around them. We basically receive our confidence from our actions. The more we practice, the more effective we become at taking certain actions, and we will observe rise in our confidence to take on any challenges or to complete any actions if we keep repeating our actions and practicing our actions repeatedly. In other words, self-confidence is standing on the foundation of our competencies. When we are really good at something, when we're really good at dealing with certain situations, that is when we start feeling confident in our ability to tackle those situations. Whereas self-esteem is different, as we've discussed before. Self-esteem is the value we put on ourselves. It is very clear to me, as it should be to you as well, that focusing on self-confidence without really managing your self-esteem or bettering your self-esteem sounds like an impossible task, right? It's going to be very hard to obtain. Now, Hari was a corporate trainer assistant whose skills and competencies were noticed by his trainer, Amrita, right? His boss. So he was articulate, patient, hardworking, focused, and had solid rapport building skills. He communicated effectively with CEOs in his training programs, and was also able to quickly analyze team dynamics of any corporate teams they were training. In totality, he was a gem of a guy, an asset to any company that he worked for. After several months of working as an assistant trainer, he heard from another training company that was offering him a position of a corporate trainer, so a promotion, right? The new company also told him that they will give him really valuable responsibilities and give him really nice or bigger opportunities, right? And he will be allowed a stress-free work environment with absolute autonomy. Hari was over the moon, right, with this offer, at least for a few days. But what happened after a few days? Soon he saw himself doubting his capabilities and competencies. He started wondering, if he could actually do it or if he actually had the ability to handle the job. So once doubt started creeping in, Hari decided to seek his boss's advice, Amrita's advice, right? So he went to Amrita and said, okay, I've got this offer. What do I do? Now, Amrita told him that although she would feel really bad to let him go, she still believed that this new offer was too good for him. Do not turn it down. But Hari was surprised by the suggestions, and he felt that he was not good enough. And he did not even see any point in even thinking of applying. So, like usual, he started looking for justifications for not believing in Amrita's praise. And he started telling himself that what he's doing is nothing special and anyone can do it. I don't have any special skills or capability. So the more he self-talked himself into this negative spiral, the harder it became for him. So as you may have already guessed, he ended up not applying. He just let that opportunity go. Many of us have low self-esteem, and no matter how many positive feedbacks and compliments we see coming our way, we still feel we're not worthy of the praise we receive. In a way, we go out of our way to ensure that we don't actually agree with the praises and compliments we receive. In a way, all these praises seem fake to us. They're not real. Hari's self-talk was doing exactly that, and he felt unsettled and ended up not applying for the opportunity. Many of us, like Hari, with great skills, capabilities, experience, we see ourselves underachieve in our lives due to our low self-esteem. We end up not getting to where we want to go. A lot of people spend several years feeling unworthy, or in some cases, even their entire lives, underestimating themselves and living lives of desperation. Our goal should be to explore and discover behaviors, characteristics, and thought process of individuals with high self-esteem so that we can learn from them, so that we can copy them and increase our own self-esteem by implementing those characteristics or behaviors or thought process into our own lives. We copy them and we become as good as them or someone with as high a self-esteem as them. Now, Rita, on the other hand, she felt very comfortable with who she was. She was also an assistant trainer like Hari, with similar focus, capabilities, and work ethics. She worked for a smaller company, And her team members saw her as a fun-loving, friendly individual, and she enjoyed what she was doing. So one morning during a multi-day corporate training program, her head trainer, Arun, he called in sick and told Rita that she had to take over. She had to take over for the next few days. Arun mentioned that if Rita felt she couldn't handle it, he would ask another trainer to substitute. But he also said that he saw Rita as the best substitute, as she has already built rapport with the team, and she has already created, a dynamic with the team members of the corporate house that they were training. Rita started feeling this nervous energy flowing through her, and she started having doubts. Sensing this, Arun told her, he had complete confidence in her and her skills and capabilities. He obviously would not have offered this to her if he did not completely believe in her. Also, Arun said to Rita that he would be available on the phone for Rita, right? Just in case Rita faced an emergency and she needed immediate guidance. Arun was there. He was sick, but he could still answer the phone. So after listening to Arun, Rita's, what she sensed as a nervous energy before turned into excitement. And she started visualizing all the previous times she had done amazing job for, Arun as an assistant, all the praises that she received from everyone around her. And she excitedly and confidently said yes to the offer. Now, Rita conducted the training as a lead trainer and clearly did an excellent job of it. Now, Rita works as a co-trainer with Arun, and they've turned into an even more effective and fun-loving team than before, right? So, if you examine Harvey and Rita's story, one is not necessarily a better assistant trainer than the other. At least I feel that. Any one of their work ethics, skills, capabilities, or their commitment cannot be seen as better than the other, right? However, what these stories do tell us is that one of these two had a higher self-worth or self-esteem than the other. Now, how can you tell if your self-esteem is high or low? Now, I'm going to give you some powerful questions that you can try on yourself, right? And then you can maybe get some ideas around the issue. So I'm going to share the screen for a little bit. So just give me a sec while I share the screen. So compliments are always tricky, right? A lot of us don't know how to accept compliments. When someone praises us, we cannot simply say thank you and walk away with a smile on our face. Instead, we try and deflect it. We try and, say something like, if someone said, you have a really nice pair of shoes on, I really like your shoes. A lot of us would say something like, oh, these are nothing, these are really cheap shoes, instead of just saying thank you. I'm thankful that you actually like my pair of shoes. So compliment is something that we all struggle with. Well, not all, but most of us struggle with. So how do you handle compliments? Can you accept compliments and praises without hesitation? Or is there a mental debate in your head, every time you receive a compliment? And do you have this feeling that maybe you're not as good enough as the world thinks you are? A lot of us have that feeling. When everyone is complimenting you, praising you, you think, maybe you're not as good as they think you are, and maybe one day you'll be found out. So are you constantly afraid of something like that? And if you really have to to it, would you be able to list down 10 things about yourself that you love or like? Can you jot them down? No. And the other thing is, how open are you to trying new things in life, especially in front of other people? Are you too worried about what other people think? Does that make you stop experiencing new things? Right? That tells a lot about your self-esteem as well. And what are your internal dialogues? What are you telling yourself regularly? What are your internal dialogue when you're facing a challenge in life, when you're facing a rough time in life? Are your internal dialogues empowering or limiting you? So these are the things that you need to be careful of when you're kind of judging your own self-esteem or trying to measure your self-esteem, right? So let me just stop sharing the screen, and then I can get back to the. Nice. Okay. Now, yeah. So those are the questions. Now have a look at your answers. How do you feel about your answers? Do your answers show that you're comfortable with yourself? Or do they tell you that you like yourself or love yourself? Or do they tell you that you're too critical about yourself and your capabilities? These answers should give you a solid indication regarding your self-esteem. These answers should give you a solid indication regarding your self-esteem, right? If you feel the need, do keep these answers with you for comparison. Comparison with your answers in the future. So if you think you would be answering these questions again in the future after attempting some kind of self improvement program, keeping these answers might be handy to see how far you've traveled. Now, the next topic we would be talking about is, of course, again, receiving compliments. Let's talk about this, because one of the first questions were about compliments, right? So clearly, when someone gives you a compliment, simply saying thank you would be the best way of accepting it, right? Like, visualize in your mind, the last time someone paid you a compliment. What did that person tell you exactly? Now speak that aloud in your head and simply say thank you. Say thank you and nothing else. You can practice saying thank you multiple times, and it may be even more effective if you can use different tones and facial expressions. Try and see what feels natural for you. And the practice is needed because if you practice it enough times, it might become a natural habit for you. It might become a natural part of you. So next time someone gives you a compliment, you can just say thank you with a smile and then carry on. Maybe you can ask a friend or a colleague to help you practice. You can also practice this in front of a mirror, because then you'll be able to see yourself, examine yourself, when you're doing it. What is your facial expression like? Does it look and feel natural to you? So practicing this in front of a mirror is also a good idea. But it's not going to be that easy to start with, because it's not going to feel that natural. But if you find yourself devaluing a compliment you just received, do not worry, it happens. Just correct yourself, smile, say thank you, and move on. So as you keep practicing, this will keep becoming more and more natural for you. Now, the other thing we talked about in the question sections were being found out, right? So if you think about it, what about yourself do you feel that you don't want other people to find out? A lot of us do not want to see others think of us as unkindly as we do ourselves. We suffer because we believe that we're not really worthy and are afraid that we're probably not as good as what other people think. A lot of these feelings and anxieties usually depend on our internal dialogues and not with reality. It's basically what we're telling ourselves, right? So what we tell ourselves actually is constructing the reality outside of ourselves. So dig deeper and question your perception of your internal reality. Usually, when we see ourselves as unworthy, either professional capabilities or in terms of social skills, for example, we are undervaluing ourselves. We notice colleagues working in our office, and they're quite content with their work. But of course, it is obvious that simply because they're content doesn't mean that they're capable or more effective or more productive or more valuable. Yeah. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, if you do really perceive yourself as someone who's not up to mark, someone who's not good enough, what can you do to improve your skills right now? What can you actually do right now? Focus on what questions. And most of the powerful questions are what and how questions, right? Do not go towards why. The only time you ask yourself a why question is when you ask yourself, why is this important for me? Otherwise, keep focusing on the what questions, right? So, what can you do to improve your skills right now? Also, regarding your social skills, how are you measuring your social skills? There are always people with better skills than you, and there are always people who are not as good as you. But the thing is, what can you do right now to improve in that area? If you really do feel you're not good enough in social skills, maybe you can do something about it right now. Maybe you can get a training, be coached by someone. Um, I don't know, go on some kind of social skills training program. Yeah, what can you do right now? It's up to you. Some questions that may give you better insight could be, okay, just ask yourself, what stops you from feeling good about yourself? What stops you from feeling good about yourself? And the next question would be, what would happen if you did feel good about yourself? Now, these two questions, if you take your time and answer honestly, these could give you a lot of insight on what you actually want in life. The other thing is liking yourself. That the other topic I would like to talk about is, yeah, liking yourself. Now, do you like yourself? If you were told to list down everything you like about yourself, can you kind of see yourself pulling out your notebook and listing several of the things that you like about yourself, listing them down without feeling any hesitations? If you can, do it right now. Try and list down as many things you like about yourself as possible. List down everything that you can think of, and yeah, even if they're really small things, list them down. Please feel free to jot them down right now. And if you cannot think of everything right now and you want to take your time, that's also fine. You can do this over several days or even weeks. You want to take your time, think about everything, and you want to do it over a few weeks. That's also fine. The other thing I'd like to talk about is being open to trying new things, right? So when you see opportunities to try new things or challenges, how do you usually respond to them? Do you respond to them with feelings of anxiety and fear, or do you see yourself becoming excited about the possibilities? Do you construct worst case scenarios and tell yourself all the things that can go wrong, or do you tell yourself to enjoy the rush of new experiences or new possibilities? Ask yourself powerful questions like, how likely is it for the worst case scenario to actually happen? Maybe just asking this question should be enough for you to feel relaxed, as you can clearly see that the possibilities are quite low. Possibilities of this worst case scenario happening is quite low. You start relaxing right there. Another question to ask yourself could be, if the worst thing did happen, what can you do to actually manage the situation. The worst thing you can think of happened. So what can you actually do to manage the situation? How can it be managed? You may actually know someone who you feel could manage the situation really well. So you've thought about a situation, and the worst thing that can happen has happened. Now how will you manage it? Now think of, if you cannot think of it yourself, think of someone who you think might be able to manage the situation really well, right? Now once you think about that person, how do you picture him or her managing it? Just visualize it, you know, and then you can learn from it. How would your best friend manage it or handle it? How would your spouse handle it? How's your role model handle it? How would Jesus handle it? Right? But the idea is, suppressing your fear is obviously not the right way of going about it. But instead, accept the challenge and explore strategies to um, concretely deal with the situation if it does not go according to your plan. However, if your instinct is constantly telling you, don't do it, don't try it, this is not for you, and your instinct is constantly bugging you about this, then maybe your instinct is trying to show you the right way, and you probably shouldn't do it, right? But that's a decision you need to make. Now, your self-talk. Um, Regarding self-talk, this is one of the most important aspect of self-growth. And the more I learn NLP, the more I realize the active role our internal dialogue plays on our reality. If you're constantly telling yourself things that are disempowering and limiting, that conversation could actually be dragging you away from your ultimate life, the life that you truly want. If you hear your inner voice telling you you can never be trusted, you always make stupid mistakes, you're useless, keep in mind that these dialogues will be affecting you negatively and will play an active role in limiting your potential and affecting your reality in disempowering ways. Uh, think of, what do you see yourself telling your loved ones who are going through a similar situation to encourage them? Let's say you gave a terrible public speaking. You were terrible at a public speaking event, right? And you come back home and you're really upset, and you're telling yourself all sort of nasty things. You're stupid. You should have done better. You should have practiced more, and you're verbally abusing yourself internally. Now, what we're trying to tell you to do is, now instead, just stop right there when you're doing it, and just imagine your loved one. Maybe your spouse, your son, your daughter, your best friend, someone else, someone that you love in a similar situation. So your son or your daughter was at a public speaking event, and she bombed it. She was completely she completely destroyed it. She was feeling awful. So she comes home, and what would you tell her? What would you say exactly if your intention was to tell her something to motivate her? How would you help her? So write these things down. Now you can actually say all of these things to yourself, and then you can see how that makes you feel, right? So whatever you would tell to your loved one, tell it to yourself. That should be your internal dialogue. Be kinder to yourself. Of course, these need to be said very convincingly and may require some practice on your part. So what kind of emotions do you experience when you hear yourself saying these words of kindness? It is vital that you're constantly scrutinizing your internal dialogue and then changing this dialogue into empowering ones. And this can be a really powerful way of seeing amazing positive changes in your life. If you are able to supervise your internal dialogue into something that is kind, supportive, and encouraging to yourself, this can have a great impact on your self esteem and confidence. There's this businessman, right? He was in debt, and he was on the verge of going bankrupt. So he's sitting on this park bench, and with his head in his hands, and yeah, he was really stressed. He didn't know what to do, where to get the money from. If he didn't pay his lenders and suppliers within a few weeks or months, he would go bankrupt. He would lose everything he's ever worked for. So he was feeling really bad. He was sitting on a park bench, and an old man came to him, and he said, "You look troubled. Can I help you?" And this businessman, he started telling his story. He said, "Okay, I'm going through this. This is my problem. These are my troubles. How can you help?" He wasn't expecting any help, but he was happy that someone was actually, there to listen to him. And the old man said, "I can help you. I can help you. Don't worry." And he pulled out a checkbook, and he asked the businessman, "What's your name?" And he wrote his name on the checkbook and wrote an amount, tore out the check, and placed it on the businessman's hand. And before the businessman could realize what's actually happening to him right now, the old man was gone. And he looked at the checkbook, and it had $500,000 written on it. And the guy who signed the check was John D. Rockefeller. So he was, one of the richest men in the world then. So the businessman was dumbfounded, and he was super happy, right? He was like, "Okay, I can make all my problems disappear. At least my financial problems disappear right now, just like that." And he was super excited. He was really happy. But then he thought to himself, "Okay, I will not use this money. I'll keep it in the safe. I will not cash this money, not yet. I will only cash this money if it became really absolutely urgent." So he put the check in the safe, and he started working. He thought, "I'll work really hard to try and get the money, and if I can't, I'll use the check." So he started talking to his suppliers. He started negotiating with his bankers, and he started talking to his clients to try and sell more. So he was becoming really effective with his work. I mean, he was negotiating deals. He was getting extensions on the loan payment, so the banks were allowing him extra few months to, pay the loan, and then the suppliers were doing the same. They were saying, "Okay, you can pay me after 2 months or 3 months. It's okay." The suppliers were being really kind to him because he had really nice negotiating skills, and he was making a lot of sales. He was closing a lot of big sales, so he was making a lot of money very fast. So within a few months, he made the required amount of money, and he paid back the banks and the suppliers, and he was really happy, right? So a year goes by, and he looks at the check, and along with the check, the old man had given, "Okay, when you make this money, you can come back and pay it back to me. I'll meet you at the same place next year, same time," right? So the old man had told him that. So after 1 year, he goes back to the same park, same bench, and he waits for the old man. And the old man eventually shows up. So he has this check to return to the old man. He's super excited. He wants to tell the old man his story of success and how he made all the money, and he didn't even have to cash the check. He takes out the check, and he's about to hand it over to the old man. There's a nurse that comes running after the old man, and he grabs the old man by his arm and starts pulling him away. And the nurse telling the businessman, "I'm really sorry, sir. This old man, he's been in our nursing home for the past 3 or 4 years, and he always goes out to people and he starts telling them that he's John D. Rockefeller. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and he starts giving out these fake checks to people. I hope he didn't disturb you. And then the nurse pulls the old man away and then takes him to the nursing home. And the businessman is left there thinking, what just happened? So he was there wheeling and dealing with the bankers, the suppliers, the other businessmen, and his clients, thinking he's got $500,000 in his safe, but it's not real. And the businessman actually realized that it wasn't the money that made him work. It wasn't the money that worked for him. It was actually his self-esteem and the confidence that the money brought with it. So basically, the moral of the story is, why am I even telling you the moral of the story? You're smart enough to get to the moral of the story yourself, right? So that's it. So this is the end, friends. We're at the end of the session. Like I've said, we'll be coming with a few more sessions on self-esteem. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have suggestions, drop us a line at coachmenepal@gmail.com. If you have feedback, do not hesitate either. Drop us a line again. We will be coming with more free sessions in the future, and some sessions that are not that free, because those sessions are awesome and we put a lot of work into it. So we won't be able to give that to you for free. But please feel free to like, subscribe, and share, because a lot of what we do on YouTube is basically just free, and we want to share what we know and we want to share our knowledge. And also like, subscribe, and share, because we love you. We really do. Right. And as you know, our main goal is to reach and take these learnings to children in remote areas of Nepal who have no access to these. And we're trying to provide these at no extra cost for the kids. We're targeting to reach about 2 million children, and your support will go a long way. And your support can be in the form of liking and supporting us in non-financial ways. We also have more programs coming in the next few months. We're planning a NLP practitioner training program, NLP master practitioner training program, and also NLP influence for business professionals. These are some of the courses we're planning to offer in December. Until then, stay safe, love yourself, love the people around you, be kind to them, because kindness is the answer to everything. And stay positive, not that way. And bye. Good night.